Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another game theory reaction. This is Poppy Playtime will end sooner than you think. So obviously this is their first, this is the first game theory video that they're making, post the release of Chapter 4. So, I mean, I really have to wonder what they mean by, will end sooner than you think? Like, are they talking about, how Mob Entertainment is going to release Chapter 5 a lot sooner than people think? Or is Chapter 5 going to be a lot shorter than, Chapter 4 was? Because Chapter 4, from what I saw, was actually pretty long. Like, are they talking about, the franchise is going to finish? Like, has Mob Entertainment been, sending out things saying, after this game, we're not going to touch Poppy Playtime again after, the movie releases? Like, that is, honestly, the more I think about it, the more, nebulous that title is. And honestly, what did they mean by that? So, yeah, definitely gonna have to see what they're talking about in this video here, because I have a lot of questions, and the title's not giving me any answers. Which, I mean, I guess is good clickbait, but, what are you gonna do? So yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we? So, yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video linked to my film theory reaction. And yeah, with all that being said, if you like this video or any other video that I make, I would very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because all that stuff helps in the algorithm, and I'm very much hoping to hit 5,000 subscribers sometime this year, hopefully. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
I have solved the ending of Poppy Playtime. Chapter 4 may have only been released a few weeks ago, but hidden beneath its gruesome and glitchy surface are a few small details that not only tell us where Chapter 5 is heading, but how this entire franchise is going to end. Spoiler alert, this ending is not a happy one. Hello Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that molds to whatever new lore Poppy throws at us. And there is a lot of that going on in Chapter 4. Mob clearly saw the success of Chapter 3 and said, let's do that again, but more. We've got more characters, more collectibles, and the most important thing, more game-breaking bugs.
I should open with my P coin.
Open!
I'm wealthy, let me in!
Mob Game said, that's a bug if you have your hands full of P coins. Sorry, sad face.
I found the P coin bug.
But while the gameplay may be broken, how is the game lore doing? This is the 4th installment after all, and that's about the time where the indie horror lore can get a bit wonky, shall we say. Well, I'm happy to report that it seems like Mob is learning from our FNAF frustrations, because this chapter is full of something we theorists crave: clarifying details. Things like, what is Poppy's true identity? Well, it's now confirmed that she is in fact Elliot Ludwig's daughter.
I wish you were here, Dad. When you were running this place, you always knew what to say.
Is Ollie really the prototype? That answer is now a resounding yes.
What did you do with Ollie?
I'm right here, Poppy. For you. I'll always be here.
We called both of those, by the way, but truly this chapter is stacked with answers to questions that we've had for a long time. So much so that this video is going to be the first in what I anticipate will be a 3-part series exploring all of them to figure out what's coming down the Poppy pipeline. So if you don't want to miss all of that, you'd better smash that subscribe button faster than Doey could smash up Pianosaurus. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, we've been subscribed forever.
Still mad about that. Such wasted potential. But to kick things off, I wanted to focus on one of the biggest questions you can ask about a franchise like this. How is it going to end? We've seen it with other franchises, how they just go on and on and on and on. So it can seem like an impossible task. But thanks to a few very specific, potentially offhanded details, I believe Mob has accidentally given the entire game away. I've spent 2 weeks falling down a rabbit hole that is deeper than Playtime Co. could ever be. And that in itself is a theory for another day. But once I finally landed at the bottom, I realized that we can not only figure out how exactly Chapter 5 is going to end, we can also learn what's going to happen beyond that, regardless of whether Chapter 5 is going to be the final chapter or not.
Okay. So, just a couple of days ago, I watched a video by Rytoast where he was talking about his theory about like why the prototype is doing all this stuff. And his video was it was going off the assumption that, you know, Elliot Ludwig is the prototype, but Poppy doesn't know that Elliot Ludwig, her father, is the prototype, and the prototype is kind of keeping it that way to not spoil her memory of him, I guess. Now, the basic theory was, you know, if you remember in chapter 4, the prototype basically told Poppy after, you know, the Hour of Joy that the toys were basically going to have to stay in the basement because, you know, they were toys. They couldn't leave without, you know, possibly getting captured by somebody else and then experimented on again, and, you know, the whole cycle repeats. So the theory that that Rytost was suggesting was that the experiments that the prototype is trying to make are seemingly like he's trying to give Poppy a new human body, or at least presumably one that could pass as human. And after all this time of it failing, presumably his last backup plan could potentially be to just, instead of, you know, trying to make her a new body, just put her into a new body, which is where the player comes in. It wasn't Poppy that sent out the letter or anybody related to her. It was the prototype sending out a letter to the only Playtime employee that survived the Hour of Joy, and, you know, have us get down to the base, get down to like the lowest basement of Playtime Co., take our brain and organs out, put Poppy's in, and then, hey, huzzah, there, you know, she has a new body. So I'm gonna have to see. I wonder if, you know, they're gonna go along the same route here.
So grab your Omni hands, theorists, because I'm going to show you things that Mob never intended for you to see. If you haven't had a chance to play the latest chapter, here's a quick recap so that we're all on the same page. The game picks up right where we left off at the end of chapter 3. We head down an elevator shaft with Poppy, who tells us about the allies that we need to find. Upon doing so, we come face to computer with a new experiment. Experiment 1354. Although while their body may be new, their voice is oh too familiar at this point. Harley Sawyer, the Doctor, the villain that has been teased throughout the entire Chapter 4 ARG. He then sends us down into the prison where we encounter Pianosaurus, who, as I've mentioned, dies immediately thanks to another new experiment, Doughy the Doughman, a creature made from Play-Doh with 3 kids inside of him rather than the usual one. Doughy leads us to a place called Safe Haven, where we reunite with Poppy. She tells us that her plan is to send the whole of Playtime Co. sky high, killing the prototype and every other toy in the facility in the process, while also trying to save the orphans the prototype has hidden in his lab. Doughy is hesitant because he doesn't want to kill all of these poor innocent toys. So regardless, we head out only to be chased down by Yarnaby, Harley's lapdog.
Which, okay, I'm going to be completely honest here. After Chapter 4 came out, and I'm still kind of looking now as well, I want somebody to write a story where, you know, the protagonist, whoever they are, the employee, where they save Safe Haven and everybody doesn't die. If you know of any stories like that, can you please like list them in the comment section below? I need some better closure.
Who then immediately dies. Beginning to see a pattern here. After many puzzles and an annoying battle with an underwhelming Barbar Chops, we once again come face to screen with Harley, shutting down his systems and putting an end to him once and for all. His final words to us are that we saved no one. But that doesn't matter now. We get to fulfill Poppy's plan and set the explosives to destroy everything. But they don't destroy everything. They only destroy Safe Haven and all the toys inside. In a fit of rage, Doughy transforms into a horrifying salamander thing for some reason, and he tries to kill us.
I mean, I always saw it as, like, it's this form, it kind of loses its cohesion, it becomes all monstrous because, you know, all 3 of the personalities in Doughy are now actively fighting for control, and that's why everything's kind of, you know, pear-shaped.
only for us to flip the tables and kill him first. Guys, I think Poppy might have a Marvel villain problem here. Great villains all killed off in the installment they're introduced in? Shame. Anyway, after defeating Doey, we find Poppy in the vents, just as the prototype shows up to, quote, take her home. Poppy runs away, leaving Kissy and us behind as the prototype blows up the vents. But instead of killing us, we end up at the entrance to Playtime's lab, the place where the prototype and the orphans dwell.
And
like I
Huggy.
said, there's a lot going on in this chapter, hence multiple videos. But today's mysteries start in the place we visit the most during our playthrough, Safe Haven. According to a note, this place was designed with blast doors and its own electrical generator in order to keep the Playtime Co. security staff safe should an experiment get out of hand, which I think we can all imagine happened quite a lot.
Yeah. Right there.
All of that has made Safe Haven the perfect spot to hide out from those same monstrous experiments like Yarnaby, Pianosaurus, the Doctor, and the Prototype, alongside our new allies.
Which, actually thinking about it, in Chapter 4, when you're first heading to Safe Haven, you see there are several toys seemingly living outside of Safe Haven, because you see like their beds and like the showers and stuff like that. But you see them before you get to the blast doors and stuff like that. So is it very much a sense of like, oh, there just wasn't enough room for everybody to permanently live in Safe Haven, and if an emergency happens, like an alarm goes off and they run to get back inside before the doors close, or did they choose to live outside of the main protective area of Safe Haven? What was going on there?
Now, we all knew we were getting an ally or two in this new chapter. Mob made that very clear on the game's Steam page, and once the Doey trailer came out, it felt pretty clear who that was going to be. Little did we know the full amount we'd actually have waiting for us here in Safe Haven. Yes, we have Doey, Poppy, and Kissy, but this place is full of toys, and none of them are trying to eat my face, which is a nice change of pace, but it did raise a few questions for me. Up until Chapter 4, the only toys we'd seen firsthand were either dead or were looking to make us dead. Even Kissy wanted to snack on us until Poppy stopped her in Chapter 3. I mean, I know I look like a snack, but this is not the time. In fact, Poppy is the only one we've known who wasn't trying to do that. That was part of what made her unique. She was the only experiment to act like a human with no aggressive tendencies, at least not towards us. But now, we're being shown that she wasn't the only one. Right at the start of the chapter, we can find journal entries amongst the pile of dead toys for a child called Riley. They're a sweet kid who lost their parents and so ended up at Playcare. After some time, they were, quote, chosen by Playtime, which they thought meant getting adopted, but oh no, they won the grand old prize of becoming a living toy. What's interesting though, is we get to see entries from after their conversion. Riley struggles to write at first, however, they do eventually figure it out. And with that, we can see that they are fully aware, fully themselves, and not an aggressive monster.
Which, okay, so if I remember correctly, I think, I'm forgetting when in the chapter, but I think the toys inside, or at least like in a journal entry or something, refer to all the toys that have gone crazy as rabbids. So, you know, the toys that have actually gone nuts. And, oh god, okay, now, kind of off topic now, but now I'm specifically thinking, I specifically heard that there were like things left in the game that were supposedly from, like, cut quests that you could have done in Safe Haven for the toys there. And now I'm just wondering, could there have potentially been at some point plans to have multiple endings in the chapters, in this chapter, specifically done if you did like all of like the quests and stuff to help Safe Haven? Like, oh, that would have been great.
Later on, we can find a VHS tape from two guards talking about their various duties.
You know what we get in the East? Toys banging on the walls, crying for their parents. Know what we get in the North? Things. Whatever they aren't people anymore.
The East is lower security, full of toys that are crying for their parents. They are aware of who they are and have memories from their life before, while the North is for the dangerous monsters, the bigger bodies that we faced throughout these chapters. Reports on Pianosaurus and Yarnaby both talk about their lack of cognitive function and animalistic tendencies, so it would make sense that they need to be in a higher security area. But then, what is the difference difference between them and some of these other, less monstrous experiments? Simple. Time. As time went on, things did somewhat improve. Huggy is a monster, but can at least listen to orders. Kissy is also a monster. She's only not eating us because, like Huggy, she's following orders. Catnap is...
Though then again, there is some question to that, given that, you know, she might still remember her past life, but given her, you know, new physiology, might quite literally not be able to speak. Because there is that one Easter egg you can find in Chapter 3 where she's sitting in a room looking at a picture, now, like, of a little girl. Now, whether that's a picture of her when she was still human, or whether, like, one of her friends or something, that's still up in the air, but, you know, she seemingly still has memories. Or, you know, at the very least, she remembers the kids who were there and is, you know, crying about them if she doesn't remember.
Kinda able to communicate. Mummy is fully functioning, albeit with a bit of a temper towards adults. As time went on, the experiments improved. By the time we get to Chapter 4, there are a bunch of toys, including Doey, Experiment 1322. All of them are starving, and yet they do not look at us as if we are going to be their next meal. It seems like Playtime Co. did figure out a way to keep the orphans' humanity, as well as figuring out how to make them fit into much smaller bodies like Poppy. Something which Harley mentioned during the ARG was a challenging task, leading to Boxy Boo and the larger, bigger bodies in the first place. However, there is one small hole in this line of thinking. If these later and smaller experiments are supposed to be more human-like, why then have we had a bunch of mini Huggies, smiling critters, and nightmare critters, smaller experiments that are implied to have been later in the process, acting like rabid monsters?
Because they've literally gone crazy. That's literally it.
Harley just really bad at his job, failing to keep all these children's brains intact? I don't think so. Was it because while they were doing the experiments, they weren't listening to the chillest beats on the internet? It's entirely possible. While Barbie exists in this universe, I'm not sure whether the soothing tones of our lo-fi channel Lo-Fi do. If they did, I'm sure these guys would be way calmer, able to enjoy all the new music that drops every single Monday. Alas, they cannot. But you definitely can over on Spotify and Apple Music. Plus, if you're watching a Poppy video, chances are you're into hidden lore, and Lo-Fi has a ton of it, hence the name. Last year, we finished the prologue about a girl named Taylor as she's sucked into a mystery surrounding a missing kid. Because as we all know, all good lore starts with missing kids. But now, Chapter 1 has begun with our chill and study stream, and we've got sleepy time and gamer/coding streams coming up later this year with even more lore. So if that tickles your theorist brain, or you just need some chill vibes while you work or sleep, you can check out the link in the description or head over to wherever you stream your music from. But seeing as the Doctor doesn't have this and he's not surgically incompetent, I don't think either of those explain why these new toys are still rabid. Although I am convinced that Harley definitely has something to do with why they're acting like this. I'm sure that while I've been showing clips of Safe Haven, you guys have noticed the wall art all around the place. I mean, it's pretty hard not to, right?
Yeah.
The devs were really trying to make sure we noticed it, and so I did my theorist duty and gave it a closer look. A lot of it has the kind of messages we might expect to find. Help us, we will be saved, and a massive mural of Catnap putting the orphans to sleep. But the thing that caught my eye the most was this little side room known in the game files as the Memorial Room. Inside, we see a bunch of poppies and candles around the place, paying respects to those they've lost, which, according to some of the writing, is around 40 toys, 40 children. And the walls in this room are also painted with murals, and those actually give us more insight into this story of death. There are two sides of the drawing. On the left, we have characters highlighted in blue. Some alive, including Kissy Missy, but others are dead. On the other side, we have characters including Boxy Boo and Pianosaurus highlighted in red. These two colors, along with the inclusion of the bigger bodies we know and recognize, is showing us two opposing sides within these toy factions. Blue is the side of good, the side of Safe Haven, while red is the side of evil, the side of the Doctor, and thanks to a special VHS tape, the side of our favorite villain, the Prototype.
You know I'm still your best shot at cracking that secret. A sound observation.
Yes, you have made yourself useful.
There is a literal war going on between these two factions, and the good, non-rabid toys are losing. But there is one more side in all of this, one that they believe is going to even the odds and help them win. The one character they've highlighted
Poppy.
in white, surrounded by phrases like, "We need you, Poppy." We've talked in previous theories about the amount of religious symbolism in Poppy Playtime, with Catnap's worshipping of the prototype, and the Doctor's poem in the ARG reflecting Psalm 23, and this is another example of that. While red and blue are typically ways of showing opposing sides, white represents something pure, something holy, like Poppy was supposed to be the savior to these toys. She was the perfect toy, the daughter of Elliot Ludwig. Surely she could do something to help them, but she didn't. She ran away, and because of that, we see those murals of Poppy crossed out.
Okay, well, granted, I mean, we do see her run away in chapter 4, so there might have been something to that whole, running away thing. But at the same time, going back to chapter 1, we find her in a case, which has been revealed that, the prototype put her there. Either as, like, some form of stasis or just to keep her safe if the prototype is Elliot Ludwig. So, I mean, I wouldn't think so much that she, like, abandoned them as, like, I probably think she was kidnapped. Which, I mean, the toys in Safe Haven wouldn't, actually know that. So, but yeah, I mean, given, her plan and, all the years that have passed, I very much assume, all of this happened because she was kidnapped and put into the stasis that was the case. And then, everybody else just not knowing that.
Outside the memorial room is another drawing of Poppy crossed out with questions like, "Where are you?" But the biggest thing we see are the words, "She left us." If you go and listen to the toys around Safe Haven, many of them talk about whether they should trust Poppy. Why would this time be different?
Can we really trust her this time?
Poppy has left them all with a feeling of betrayal and hurt. This is where the Doctor comes back into the picture. There's a note you can find called the Propaganda Flyer, and it reads as follows, quote, "Poppy leads you to the grave. You fight not to survive, but to die. See where this has gotten you. It's not too late to change your mind. Join us, and we will spare your lives. You have 24 hours. We will not make this offer again." This sentiment about Poppy being trouble, we saw shared by Harley Sawyer during the Chapter 4 ARG. In one of the many email exchanges, he claimed that her path leads to ruin. Plus, this new note is located just outside the Doctor's territory, which makes it seem like this is coming directly from him. He is seeing the weakness in the group left behind by Poppy, and so he is trying to exploit that weakness. This is why I believe we're seeing so many of these smaller, newer toys appear rabid. They were starving, losing the fight. Their savior had left them, and so they were in need of a new one. Prototype was willing to step in and fill those tiny doll-sized shoes. He gave them a clear option: turn their back on Safe Haven, give in to their base instincts, and lose whatever humanity they had left. Just like how Kissy stopped trying to eat us because Poppy told her not to, these toys are now trying to eat us because the prototype told them they could. Eating their fellow toys and other human remains may seem gross at first, but when it's that or dying of starvation, or worse, the choice is sadly pretty obvious. And then, if they held out for long enough, maybe, just maybe, the prototype would save them. Honestly, I kinda don't blame the toys for making that choice. I've always been suspicious of Poppy, as longtime viewers of the channel will know at this point. And right at the end of the chapter, she proved me right. She ran away again when things got tough, leaving us to die. She may not have run to help the prototype like I predicted, at least not yet, but she's definitely hiding something.
How much do you know?
When your supposed savior acts like that, of course the opposing deity becomes quite appealing. And the prototype does actually follow through on their threat, blowing up Safe Haven at the end of the chapter, killing anyone left that opposed him. But that doesn't mean that those who switched sides are safe either. This chapter also makes it abundantly clear that he is as much of a liar as Poppy is.
I thought we were gonna leave. Prototype says we can't leave. Not now, not ever.
Just like we saw in the CG5 song from chapter 3, the prototype promised freedom to these toys. That's what they thought the hour of joy was.
And yet they've been trapped in the basement of this abandoned factory for a literal decade. So, Yeah, that going too well for them.
It wasn't. He was just lying to achieve his own goals. Him getting the toys to leave Safe Haven and join his side, it's the exact same thing. And he'll betray them just like he betrayed Poppy, which I guess means it's up to us to step in, be the savior that neither Poppy nor the prototype could be. We will save the orphans that the prototype has trapped down here, and maybe we'll even be able to save some of the toys who changed sides out of desperation. Is what I would say if the game hadn't already telegraphed exactly what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, given everything that's happened in the game up to this point, in literally every chapter, saving the toys doesn't seem like it's going to be an option, given, you know, back to the whole thing where they cut the missions that you could play to help Safe Haven. So yeah, I'm pretty certain that, you know, this is going to be one of those things where either, you know, like 99% of everyone's going to die, or, you know, everybody is going to die, including the protagonist.
See, as I was thinking through this whole Civil War storyline, I went back through some of the dialogue in the game, and I came across this line from Harley before his boss fight.
Do you hear it? A bell. For whom does it toll?
This isn't the first time Harley has spoken like this. He's always been a fan of speaking poetic in a greater-than-thou dramatic sort of way. But this time, it's different. It's not just a poetic styled phrase. It's an actual piece of poetry. The phrase "for whom the bell tolls" comes from the poem "No Man is an Island," published in 1624. It's about how all of humankind is connected, that the loss of one life doesn't just affect that one person. It affects all of us, because we are connected. If one dies, a part of us dies too. So when we hear the bell of death sound, it's pointless to ask who it's for, because at the end of the day, it's for us. This feels fitting, given it comes just before our big boss fight with the doctor, who
before you kill him,
the bell and asks who it's ringing for, knowing full well that we are about to put an end to him, but that we should maybe reconsider because his death would be a loss for the whole of mankind. His scientific endeavors, his discoveries will now be lost. However, while this
which, I mean, you know, given his whole thing where he's doing science for science sake instead of people's sake, that may or may not be a bad thing. Also, going back to that Rye Toast video I was talking about earlier, was it part of that video or another one? I'm forgetting. The Bigger Bodies Initiative wasn't the main thing. Like, if you go back to the early experiments where it was just Ludwig, the experiments were focused on bringing things back to life. You know, the rat and like the Poppy solution and stuff like that. So presumably this was initially done to bring his daughter back, and bringing her back as Poppy the doll was like the first time it succeeded. But then the Bigger Bodies Initiative kind of spun off from that research of, oh, how do we bring people back from the dead? And then everything else just happened.
Poem is one of the first places the phrase "for whom the bell tolls" was used. It isn't the only time, nor is it the most famous. That honor goes to the book of the same name by Deadpool. Is that you? Oh, no, it's just Ernest Hemingway. My bad. Anyway, this book is about a guy from America called Robert. He goes to Spain to fight in the Spanish Civil War being fought by the Republicans and the Nationalists. He sides with the Republicans, who currently are losing the fight, and so joins them in the mountains where they're hiding away. His main companion throughout this story is a woman who has lost her parents and was taken advantage of by the opposing side. The Republicans plan to turn the tides of this battle, blow up a bridge. But there's deception from within their own ranks, and because of that, they lose some of the bombs and their way of detonating them. Now, where have I heard this before? Oh, right. It's literally the game we're playing. Our player character is an outsider to this toy war. We side with Dowie and Poppy, who are losing the battle and hiding out in Safe Haven away from the Doctor and his forces. Our main companion, Poppy, has lost her dad and was lied to and tortured by the prototype, the leader of the opposing side. Ollie was supposed to be our friend, but it turned out to be the prototype lying to us, and so we ended up losing the bombs and not igniting the gas as we planned. But let me tell you, theorists, when I first read this, my mouth was almost as agape as a smiling critter. These stories are practically one-to-one, minus one crucial detail: the ending. We are yet to see the ending of Poppy Playtime,
that's
and
kinda
as we
important,
end
yeah.
the chapter heading into the prototype's lair, the labs, it seems like that ending is coming up pretty soon. But For Whom the Bell Tolls does have an ending, and given how closely aligned everything else has been so far, I have a feeling that means Poppy is going to end in a similar way. In the book, Robert decides to go on the final assault of the bridge as planned, just with some minor alterations. Because they lost their main means of detonating the bombs,
He has
he's
to do
going
it
to
himself.
have to be right up close in order to set them off. He does manage to do so, but shrapnel hits his comrades, he gets fired upon by the enemy, and he suffers an injury so great he is unable to retreat with his team. He tries to remain awake as long as he can in the hopes that he can maybe shoot down a couple of enemy soldiers to allow his friends to escape, but he knows that his death is inevitable. The bell now tolls for him. At the start of chapter 4, Poppy told us how the red smoke can be ignited, and that the bombs were our way of doing that. However, we've now lost our primary means of detonation. The prototype took the bombs and used them on us instead.
We've taken the liberty of retrieving those explosives from the Foundation. Thanks for collecting those, by the way.
But that doesn't mean we're out of options. In chapter 3, Catnap was spewing the same red gas, and
Before
with
he
one shot
ignited.
from our electrified grab pack hand, he too burst into flames. You may be able to see where I'm going with this. Much
Yep.
like in the book, our main character is going to fulfill their promise to Poppy and blow up Playtime Co. using the red smoke. We're just gonna have to be close enough to use our grab pack hand to do it, sacrificing ourselves so that Poppy and the orphans can escape. Only that isn't actually how the story ends. I mean, it is. The book's ending is purposely left ambiguous, but the story the book is based on, the real-life history, that continues on.
God, yeah, the real Spanish Civil War. The communists. No, wait, the fascists, not the communists, because the Republicans were the communist, democratic ones. The fascists did win. Is that meaning that potentially they might be hinting at the prototype will win in the end, or at least won't be killed, and may result in, the prototype showing up in future games?
Mentioned earlier that this book is based on the Spanish Civil War, which ended in 1939. And if Poppy Playtime is following that history, our heroic sacrifice may be for nothing. Despite the good fight put up by the Republicans, ultimately it was the nationalists that won the war, with the
Nationalists, that was
leader
their
of the
actual name,
movement,
sorry.
Francisco Franco, not only surviving the entire war, but going on to lead the country until 1975, 36 years after the war ended. We may put up a good fight. We may even be able to destroy Playtime Co. like Robert destroys the bridge, but I believe that ultimately we'll be shown that Poppy is once again misinformed. The prototype won't be stopped by a simple explosion, and in the end, while we may die and we may save the orphans, the prototype will survive and continue with their plans for this world. What are those plans exactly? Well, that's what I plan on exploring in one of our future theories. So again, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, and in the meantime, friends, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Oh, God. I'd say that, going back to my whole thing of trying to find some story that somebody's written or fan fiction about, trying to find, a better ending for the toys and stuff like that. But again, given everything that's happened, where, in every chapter, there's been death. There's been nothing but death and destruction. And then, in chapter 4, all of Safe Haven is absolutely destroyed. I can't help but feel that they may be right on this one in saying that, chapter 5 may end with everybody dying. So, God, that's going to be sad and depressing if that actually happens, though. Again, the chapter 4 just came out. Developers are still probably on break after working on it. So it's probably going to be, maybe about a year or so, probably, before chapter 5 comes out. It is going to be nuts. So we're going to have to see where that goes and what tidbits they start feeding us then. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. So yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video will link to my film theory reaction. And yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not. and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.